Nigeria is one of the largest oil producers in the world, but has witnessed massive crude oil theft in the Niger Delta region, which, among other factors, has continued to affect the daily output of the commodity. In August, it was reported that the federal government awarded a pipeline surveillance contract worth 48 billion naira per annum to a firm run by government Ekpomukpolo, popularly known as Tompolo, to curb the massive oil theft in the Niger Delta. Within 2 months after the contract was awarded, Ekpomukpolo announced the discovery of at least 58 illegal points in Delta and Bayelsa states where crude oil was being stolen. Back in January 2021, Nigeria's oil production decreased to 1.14 million barrels per day, the lowest value recorded in the previous years. The figure experienced a further decrease due to the impact of COVID-19 and the related lower demand, which also led prices to sink. According to Census and Economic Information Center, Nigeria crude oil production data reached an all-time high of 2.496 million barrels per day in November 2005 and a record low of 1.057 million barrels per day at the beginning of August 2022. However, the security interventions championed by the NNPC using the production sharing contracts and other state security apparatus, production improved to a recent peak of 1.568 million barrels per day, over 468 million barrels per day over the lowest point of 1,1000 kpd in August 2022 at the peak of theft. Well, joining us on the show this morning to discuss ways we can achieve this is Mr. Bala Wunti, Chief Investment Officer, NNPC Upstream Investment Management Services. Welcome to the morning show.
Good morning. Good morning, Ruben.
Okay.
Good morning, Ayo.
We've had so many figures. Sometimes we're told that the loss is about $700 million per month, or $8.4 billion per annum, according to one account. Sometimes we're told we lose 700,000 barrels of crude oil per day. And we're told that by Q1, first quarter of 2022, we had already lost over $1.5 billion to crude oil. What exactly is the quantum of the loss to crude oil theft? There must be some exact data instead of, the conflicting speculative figures that we get.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, exactly. A lot of data has been quoted and recorded, some out of context. But in essence, in NNPC, based on all the calculation that we do, we are losing an average of about 700,000 barrels. Perhaps the meaning of loss should be put into context here. In hydrocarbon accounting algorithm, there are 3 types of losses. There's what we call the engineering losses, which is usually what is accepted by material balance. That range between 0.01 to 0.05. Nobody accounts for it. It's part and parcel of the engineering process. Second type of losses are those losses that you produce the hydrocarbon, but the hydrocarbon gets stolen by vandals and theft. Those are called actual losses. And then the last one is what we call opportunity loss. Those opportunity loss arise as a result of the fact that we are unable to produce what we plan to produce. You reported rightly that the budget is anchored on the basis of our 1.88 million barrel per annum, per day production. And what that means is that if, as you also reported, that at one time in August, we are recording barely about 1 million barrel, it means the difference between 1.8 and 1 million barrel is what we are losing. That's what the Treasury see. Now, those losses, I think where people get it messed up, is that whether it is all this 800 or 700,000 that is being stolen, or some of them are opportunity lost. And that is where probably the discrepancy comes in. But from our record, we are losing an average before we recover 700,000 barrels, translating to about 21 million barrels per month. And if you put and take an average oil price of this year of $90, that would translate to somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.8, $1.9 billion losses that we suffered.
These are huge losses. The numbers are staggering. Yes. And only recently, the Navy, I'll just said Mr. Agada, the Navy Chief of Training and Operations, Rear Admiral Solomon Agada, had spoken to the Senate and mentioned that the NNPC wasn't quite honest in the figures that are being released and in what they're telling Nigerians as to the causes of the oil theft. I'd like you to speak to that in terms of him saying that the figures are being exaggerated.
Well, I don't know the basis of that statement, but let me just say one thing. We plan to be producing 1.8. This media house, alongside every other media house, including OPEC, has recorded that Nigeria's production went as low as 1.1. The arithmetic is very simple. The difference between 1 million, 1.1 to 1.8, it will give you that neighborhood of 700. I just explained to you the algorithm of the losses. We have engineering losses, we have actual losses, and we have opportunity losses. Secondly, I think Solomon Agada himself, who is a very respected naval officer, the C-top of Nigerian Navy, has come to, so to speak, recant that statement. I've seen a statement whereby he make mention that he has been quoted out of context. And thirdly, I would like to register our appreciation to all the armed forces, including the Navy, particularly the Chief of Naval Staff, with their collaboration, which they have reported even in their own adverts around the media, that they have arrested over 68 vessels doing bunkering, doing illegal activities, and they also reported in their own advert that significant quantum of crude oil and product has been recovered by them. And all this, if you put into context, precisely say something that contradicts what has been said. But having said that, what I would like to say is that all the security agencies, together with the operators, are now working in sync to address this menace. But the question of whether or not there's stealing, I think is not in contention.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Wunti, I read in the papers that you were in Uyo yesterday for a function.
Yes, sir.
And you were saying that, look, crude oil production has improved from about 1 million in July to about 1.5 million barrels per day now. Yes, well, often people attribute that to the fact that Shell returned to Forcados. Yes. The Forcados terminal, and that was why there was that improvement. Yes. But you were talking about security strategies that have been adopted by the regulators, by the operators, by NNPC, and by the security agencies, what you call deterred, desist, and I don't know, 3Ds, yeah? You know, you talked about 3 strategies. Can you take us through those strategies, what has been done, and whether or not, this is beyond Shell returning to the Forcados terminal?
Okay, I think the key question to ask is that where were Forcados, where were Brass terminal, where were Bonny terminal in force majeure? We need to ask that question. The reason is simply because we are unable to deliver crude into those terminals. And why are we not unable to deliver crude into those terminals? Is simply because of the security vulnerability. As I speak to you, Brass is in force majeure, Bonny is in force majeure. That is about 300,000 barrels deferred already. We've been working hard with the private security contractor to return the Trans-Niger pipeline. We are successful to some extent, but not yet where we want to be. Hopefully, we'll open Bonny very soon. So what happened is that even the terminal to go out of volume was simply because of the security situation. That the security situation is now restored, together with certain activities that have been carried out to revamp what we've seen in Forcados. Forcados is back and is producing. Bonny will soon be back. So yes, indeed, we are back. But up to today, one of our major trunk lines, the Nembe Creek trunk line, we can't use it because of security. TMP is still up and down. Trans-Forcado is back. Trans-Escrobos is back. Trans-Remo is back. But even as I speak to you today, we're still having some of those volumes. Now, when you talk about where we are talking about the security architecture, I think we need to look at it. Where in the first place do we have to put in a different architecture? It's not that we are absent of architecture in the past. There was a security architecture. But was it working? It wasn't working. And because it wasn't working, we have to carry out a very robust diagnosis. And those diagnoses reveal about 5 major issues that need to be attacked. Number 1 is the fact that we have a very, very difficult terrain. I think that is all given is the geography, the geology. We can't do anything about it. Consequence of that, we can't have end-to-end visibility, particularly in our maritime economic zone. What you see in the blue waters is not connected to the brown water, neither is connected to the black water. If you can't see black, brown, and blue water, it therefore means you have a very disaggregated security visibility. We don't have that visibility. Attached to that is that there are proper lack of coordination with all the players, whether regulators, whether security agencies, and talk less of the security in the private sector. The community were near absent, but most importantly, we are using technology suboptimally. And because of that, it was very difficult to have an end-to-end visibility. And the new architecture was anchored basically on what we call rectangular architecture, layered on technology. And what does the rectangular do? It brings together the security and intelligence agency at one angle, the regulators at another, the operators at another angle, and then bring in what was almost zero, the community, into the other angle. And without the community, you can't achieve that. And that is just the innovation. And we layer that on a technology command and control center. And I'm glad this media house has visited that command and control center. Today, we have end-to-end visibility. We are able to detect, we are able to deter, and we are able to respond. The response is where we are still making a lot of improvement. And that's what you refer to what we call the 3DR. We first detect, we deactivate, and we destroy, and then we remove. And that is what is a very complex activities. You've seen in some of their clip where we have to destroy the whole vessel. Removal of this vessel is a big job. So we are doing that, and we are recording significant success. The success that we recorded today was essentially because of this improved security situation. We are now almost an average of 350 to 400,000 barrel increase. At a certain level, we recorded up to 450 increase at the given year. And that's why you can see we are now from 1.1 barely to about 1.59 today, this morning. So this is some of the things that we are able to record based on the new security architecture.
All right, thanks for detailing the new security architecture. Just looking at the reports that was released by your unit around incidences, you've identified illegal bunkering, you've identified illegal refineries, you've identified vandalism and theft. I believe the image will be showing community issues. You've looked at piracy, sabotage. You've given us an overview of your security architecture. Now, in terms of the reality on ground, because the numbers, as your report suggests, are really high. And you've talked about the challenges you've had with even deploying this new security architecture. How do you hope to close that gap? Because currently you have outstanding, you removed 638 out of 763 illegal refineries. However, there's still 125 still outstanding. That's quite high. What are the measures to ensure that this new security architecture is not open to sabotage and would actually succeed? And the next thing is, what is different from the previous architecture that you had on ground? What are you doing differently to ensure that oil theft is totally and decidedly dealt with?
Okay, first, as we speak now, I can assure you that we're still identifying new ones. And this is an ongoing and a very dynamic crime activity that we're dealing with. Secondly is the fact that I did mention to you, we now have what we never had before. We have an end-to-end technology capability that we can see, that we can do whatever we need to do. But let me come back to talk about how do we deal with some of those things that we have identified. And I think the numbers that you mentioned, again, they are just growing every day. And as they are growing, we're also improving our capability of deactivating them and removing them. And today I can tell you, in terms of the illegal refinery, we have incapacitated almost about 70% of what we have identified, and we keep identifying some of them. Several measures are being done to identify, including the community coming back, including what we call metal for information. People like the metals that they can go and sell, identify it, we help you deactivate, remove, and give it to you as scrap and sell it. And we're getting significant volume of intelligence, and we're using this intelligence to make sure that we remove that. We're also removing the illegal connection. This is where it is amazing. It is just mind-boggling, I can say, what we discover, even we as operators. And every one of us saw the kind of sophistication where illegal connections are put on our very major trunk line, including direct export line on Pocados. That wouldn't have been possible without the collective resolve of the private security guard anchored by the community. So what do we do with that? We have to remove those very, very carefully, because some of those pipelines are under severe pressure. We have to depressurize in them and then try to make sure that we remove them, and then we're able to restore back the integrity of that pipeline. So it's a very complex situation. The question that I've always asked, which is what you asked, how can we make it sustainable? I think first when we set up this, we have a kind of short, medium, and long time visibility. Short time, we say, stop it first. Stop the hemorrhage. And then second, can we now develop further to see how we can? I can tell you that we have successfully, to some extent, stopped this menace. The question now is, how do we stop the growth of it? And we are now going through so many things. So we introduce what we call checking the checker who is checking the checker. What that means is that we have 4 layers of visibility. I can tell you, I'm the coordinator of the industry security. I'm only at the 2nd level. I don't know what's happening at the 3rd level and the 4th level. I don't even know who they are, but I know they exist. So even me, I'm being monitored as I speak, as I act, as I do whatever I do. So I monitor other people, and the other people too, they are monitoring their own whatever they are monitoring. But on top of me, there are 2 layers. So this is some of the things that we do. The technology has come to stay. Our control center is built to last, and we are improving it every day. And based on all the things that we are doing, we have brought it to be. Thirdly, I think we do recognize the fact that any security architecture that does not involve the community, it will not work. Because in the operation field, there are 3 people at play: the operator, the security agencies, and the community. And the community were not in those days are connected to that, and they don't feel sense of belonging. Now that they have sense of belonging, we are now taking those boys who are being used as criminals and bringing them back to give us information on a very legitimate platform. So that's what we've seen to institutionalize it. So the security architecture has come to be institutionalized, and today is forming part and parcel of organizational design, which means that it's going to last as long as we have to continue to operate, recognizing that crime will be dynamic and people will upgrade their own way, and we too have to think ahead of the crime and the criminal. And that's what we're trying to do. A lot of things are going on.
Okay, you've talked about the security agencies, the regulators, the community, the operators. How about those private security contractors? You know, in the introduction, we referred to Tompolo. You know, he will fall under private security contractors. Could you share with us the selection criteria for choosing the private security contractors, what their roles, what their role has been so far, and whether there is a mechanism in place for evaluating their performance?
Well, obviously, Ruben, as a very, very strong corporate organization with strong corporate governance, whatever we do, we have to comply with whatever that we need to comply. But let me say the first that the security architecture was intentionally designed under what we call the SIMES model. SIMES means S-I-M-E-S. What it means is that we sectorize the country into 3 regions based on the level of vulnerability. We now integrate them with technology. And when we integrate them, we monitor. We have a lot of monitors all over the place, including beyond visual, using drone and the rest of them. And then we enforce what we need to enforce to ensure that there's no any violation of some of those processes. And lastly, we sanction. We have achieved some of those things. To be able to get those integration and intelligence, we know that the community need to come in. And the community, you know, we have only God knows number of community, 500, 600, 1 million. There's no way you can work with some of these numbers. And what we do was to put them together in a structured format. And that structured format follow the 3 thematic regions that we identify, which we call the West, the Central, and the East. And we select through our procurement process, very transparent, and I'm going to speak about it, 3 contractors. Incidentally, one of them that had been associated, Tantita, was associated with Tampolo, happened to be the most visible. And there's no gainsaying the fact that most of the things that we have recorded are recorded under him. But we have another contractor called Martin, who is responsible for brass and all the central area. and we have the pipeline infrastructure responsible for the east. So there are 3 contractors based on the sectorization of the region that we have done, and each one of them is reporting. But obviously, there are more and more activities happening, especially on the maritime economic zone toward the west, than what you have in the east, which is mostly around the illegal refinery and the rest of them. And everybody think that all this contract is given to Tompolo. There's no gainsaying the fact that his company that he's been associated with, Tantita, has been very, very active, just like the other ones. On top of the process, we went out to look for which company that is involved in the security service that we do. And we come across these 3 through that process. It's a very structured procurement process. We have not skipped anything. Not only that, every step of the way that we did, we have to get these companies be screened by all the intelligence and security agencies, because the steering committee of this whole industry security architecture involved the chief of defense staff, involved of the 2 regulators, CEOs, involved the NIA, the DSS, and everybody that is in there in the steering committee. So they screen these companies before we go to the Mr. President, and we get the approval of Mr. President. Ultimately, it is the presidential approval, which was based on all the security recommendations that brought about these 3 companies. So every step has been followed. Are we monitoring? Yes, we are monitoring. I did mention to you that the structure is in such a way that we are checking the checker who is checking the checker. So incidentally, Tompolo is being monitored, or Tantita is being monitored, just like I'm being monitored also. And there's every reporting structure that we have today. We have our incident reporter formal. They are compelled under the contract to report every incident that they see. But they submit daily, weekly, and monthly report. And not only that, we have the right to interrogate whatever they are doing. And because we are also monitoring what they are doing, we compare what we have from them and what we see. And will also help us regard. In terms of segregation of function, I think when we started, there was a lot of confusion. But that has been very, very clearly delineated. Today, the government security agencies and the private security contractors are working in sync. Every one of them understands his limitations. They are getting intelligent, they are responding to the community, the military are doing what they are supposed to do, the intelligence are doing what they are supposed to do. So today we have everybody under one wrap and they are working in sync. If there's any major achievement that led us to recovering of this barrel, is basically that collaboration that we are able to bring with the support of the technology platform that we have.
All right, Mr. Wunti, let's talk about the first D, which is detection.
Yes.
Now, in detecting, earlier this year, in August of this year, the GMD of the NNPC, Mr. Mele Kyari, speaking to a ministerial briefing, had talked about the fact that the illegal tapping was very sophisticated, and that indeed highly placed Nigerians, including politicians, religious leaders, were behind these illegal tappings. That in fact some of these products were housed in churches, mosques, and mentioned different places. He actually said that so far at the time, 122 people had been apprehended. Nevertheless, no names were mentioned. We haven't seen a release of who these highly placed Nigerians are. Do you not think it would be a deterring factor to name the people who are behind these illegal taps? And then beyond that, after detection, what are the punitive measures? What's the punishment for it? Is there a clear policy as to how these people or these individuals will be dealt with? I'm sure Nigerians would like to know that.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, this is a very fair question, and this question keeps coming. First and foremost is that were there arrests? Yes, there were arrests. Since the time when the GCO spoke, much more arrests has been done. Those arrests are being done by people who have the law behind them to arrest. And when you arrest, there are certain protocol that you have to go. Some of them, as I speak to you, some of them are undergoing prosecution. There are certain things that I do in terms of the announcement. The government, particularly the intelligence agency, including financial intelligence agency, are following the money. Sometimes when you go out quickly, you tend to compromise certain things. And I believe the detail and the diligence that is being implemented may be the one. So it's not whether or not those people will be named. The people will be named. The question is when. And I think when government agencies and intelligence agencies has concluded what they are doing, I'm sure everybody will get to know who are involved. As to who and who, you'll be shocked. A lot of people. And
so we have names?
I told you, stay tuned.
Are you legally constrained from Would it not be helpful?
I'm just like Arise. I'm a legal entity that I'm not empowered to talk. The security agency, the intelligence agency who have they are doing through investigation. If you are following the track,
yes.
Even recently the NSA announced certain things.
Yeah.
So they have the power to announce.
All right.
And they will
for
do
the
that
prosecution and the court processes, would that be made public?
Of course, it's going already.
All right.
It's going already. And thanks to the judiciary, they have appointed specific judges across the region to deal with this in a expeditious manner. And I speak to you, the High Court is also trying to bring in technology into some of those dedicated courts. You know, these things were not in existence, so we are trying to build them. So I can tell you that we are getting a lot of cooperation from the Office of the Attorney General, together with the court system, the High Court in particular. They have appointed judges. We are trying to identify even locations that they can be properly equipped with technology to expeditiously deal with this. But I speak to you, if it goes across courts, there are already people before the court that are being prosecuted today.
Okay, Mr. Wunti, in the course of this conversation, when you were talking about your strategies, I've heard you use the word destruction, destroy, at least about twice. And that reminded me of the occasion when a vessel laden with stolen crude, we were told was destroyed. And I recall arguing on this program that will amount to destroying the evidence. So why is it a wise thing to do, to destroy stolen crude, to even destroy the facility and destroy the evidence? Because, you know, this has been done again and again. So why is that a good strategy, you know, that, you know, you have adopted upstream, that is?
Okay, so again, they said history and experience must be brought to bear when you want to do certain things. If we have been doing something and we're not been getting the results, then we need to change tactics. Part of the thing is you only other the destroy, we have to deter. Now, the way the military or the institution, the security institution look at this, they look at it as a war on the nation. They view it as a war against the state. And therefore, when they can do whatever that they will need to do, including destruction, as legitimate. We as civilians, we cannot do it. If you notice and you see it, it was the military that did the destruction. Why did they have to destroy? Before they destroy, all evidences were collected, including the people. The people were paraded. The people were interviewed by the journalists. And the people were now taken, they're being prosecuted. But before then, all investigations were done. And facts collected, document collected. So there's no two way about it. That's how we come to know that that particular vessel has been operating with different names at different times, and we know their destination. All these things are anchored and we get it. Some of them involve some other countries, and I think different body of this country are taking that into consideration. Now, when you destroy, what we have found is that because of the difficult terrain, sometimes even when you arrest, how can you take it to a court for evidence? Become very difficult, and you have to do a lot of things to change the law to do that. We don't even have the capability to drag some of those things and use them as evidence. Secondly is that we have seen time without number, Mr. Ruben, where asset is reported to have been arrested. 2 days later, you hear a kind of story. Either the vessel sink or the vessel were discovered, they have legitimate paper and has let it go, and the rest of them. And you see the same vessel coming back in a different name. So I think what the military did this time is to say, look, we need to send some strong signal that everybody that we see on our maritime is coming for war. And because you are coming for war, we confront you in that same manner. And so the military, in its own wisdom, give the directive that this asset be destroyed. So the fact that we destroy it doesn't mean that we're destroying evidence. Before you destroy it, we've done everything, including arresting the crew, getting all the documentation around the vessel, and knowing exactly what the DNA of that vessel is.
Well, I just hope that the stolen crude is not stolen again by another set of thieves. You know, that is a major concern. But do we really actually know the amount of crude that we produce? Because I've seen a story. The figure you quoted in Uyo yesterday, some people have said, well, where is the data to back it up?
Well, I think, first let me say that something. Everybody says so many things. You know, when you come to Nigeria, we're all expert in one thing. and when an issue comes, everybody, you see them coming expert. hydrocarbon accounting architecture globally is a standard and is governed under stringent compliance, international compliance. 80% of our production is still being done by the IOCs, the Shell of this world, the ExxonMobil of this world, the Chevron of this world, the E&I of this world, the Total of this world. All these people are under stringent condition, especially on their stock exchange, to report exactly what they're doing at every country. That's number one. Number two, as you are aware, even NNPC is a member of the EITI. We are required and they are there to report it. Thirdly, the allocation of quota by OPEC was not done just arbitrarily. They look at our geology, they look at our maximum efficiency rating, they look at our technical allowable and impose commercial limitations. All these numbers come together. What happened is that many people look at these numbers at different times. If you look at this number, for example, in September, you see a different number than today. There's never a day that you have the same number with yesterday, because this geology, this world, have a way of behaving. So I can tell you that we exactly know as a country what we are producing based on all the data that we have. And that's what I reported today. You can see your numbers, which is, I must commend you, is very, very close to what we have. We are 1.59 today. I can tell you that this is the total production that we have as a country for that crude, which hitherto we are not able to achieve that.
All right, now when you were speaking about the holistic approach to dealing with oil theft, you mentioned the operators yourselves, you mentioned security operatives, and you mentioned community as well. I'd like you to detail your community approach. So in terms of, is there a process of reporting incidences? Are there security around whistleblowers? How are you engaging the community to arrest these incidents?
Okay, I did mention that the private security contractors, their primary job was to operate in their communities. They are community contractors.
Okay.
And so what they do is that they go to every places and they recruit people from that community. And that's why when we started, we have a lot of problem. But as every community discover that their people are being recruited to do this kind of job, and they're being rewarded for doing that job legitimately, you see that the situation has now become normal. What we saw is a forming stage. So the community has to be brought in under a structured organization. If you go to the Western community, they are anchored under Tantita. When you go to the central communities, which range from part of Bayelsa, Imo, and Rivers, is anchored around Matam. Everywhere they are engaged. I recalled, Ayo, before we go live on this, significant consultation were done, including visiting each of the state governors of the oil producing region. We are talking with the state governors. We are supporting the state governors, why this is a phenomenon, for them to do what they need to do. So not only the specific community, but even the state government and state governors are properly consulted and engaged on a daily basis. We provide them with the report, and they are seeing the benefit today that at least there's some improvement and there's direction that where we're going. So that's the only way you can manage the community. You can't reach 300, 400, 500 community in this kind of structure. It's going to be chaotic. And to avoid that chaos, we bring in people that are respected, people that have the capability around the community to anchor and support them. And that's what we do. So everybody is under that umbrella. So those three companies that you saw, they're just providing umbrella to cover a particular community.
And what's your mode of consultation? So you go into these, into the communities. What's the mode of consultation with these communities? What have you adopted?
I think we base it on trust. We lost trust before, but we recover our trust. We visit everywhere, and we've seen us. Unlike before, we sit down in Lagos, and we try to manage what is happening in Yokri. Today, we go to Yokri. We interact with them, with the community leaders, with influencers, with the young people. We have open door. Most importantly, they now have a platform, a technology platform, that they report whatever they see as whistleblower, and people are being rewarded handsomely for that. Just go to www.crudeoiltape.com, and then you'll be able to report whatever you want to report. And if the intelligence is good enough, you'll be rewarded handsomely, and we'll receive a tremendous reporting on that.
Okay. I will be looking out for anybody I see with any suspicious keg.
Yes.
Can you say the platform again where we
The platform is Crude Oil. It's an app, and the app has been published. We even advertise it. I'm sure maybe Arise, you are one of the people that benefit from that advert.
Okay, two things. Now, this detect, deter, destroy, and respond strategy. Yes, oil production, crude oil production has gone up to 1.5 million barrels, but this is Nigeria. This country, things go up and down, right? All of this, I guess, is as a result of the president himself saying, we have a revenue problem. The CBN governor saying, we are making more money from non-oil exports. We need to address crude oil theft. Everybody protesting. So this strategy, is it short-term, or are there structures in place to ensure that it is long-term? And secondly, the big elephant in the room. I know you are in charge of upstream investment management. About a week ago, we were promised that NNPC has 2 billion liters of fuel that will be made available. There is still fuel scarcity in Lagos. When is the fuel that is in NNPC custody going to be made available, so that we won't be worrying about getting fuel and all of us will not be going about with jerry can? Maybe you have information in that regard. So don't say, oh, I'm in upstream, I don't know about the downstream. Those two issues. Okay,
so let me say that is it going to be institutionalized? That's what I say, is going to be institutionalized. We believe that the same question that you've been asked 10 years ago is the same question we're asking today. However, the answers are different because of the dynamics, and we believe tomorrow is going to be different as well. So what we say is that we're going to institutionalize this structure. An example is that the command and control center we build is not built for a day or two. It's built to last. We can only keep improving it. So I did say that today in our organizational design, we have brought in that as part and parcel of organizational structure. What that means is that we are not doing it as a short term. I also did mention at the beginning that when we started this, we see a three regime of this short, medium, and long time. The short is to stop it, the medium term is to look at the structure and start in building, and the long time is to build a sustainable structure that is going to last. All in all, we are looking at 24 months to do that, and so far we are ahead of schedule in terms of the implementation. So that's about that, is for a long time. Now, when you talk about some of the benefit that we do bring in terms of the production, I think the numbers very speak, and specifically, you asked me to speak what I used to do in the past. I was managing director of then PPMC, and I can tell you how it works. The challenge about making available any product is around 4 A's. Make it available, accessible, affordable, in an acceptable format. That is what NNPC do. If they don't do it, security of supply of everything is going to be challenged. Now, when security of supply is challenged, it could come around several factors. Only one angle is supply. We have supply, we have distribution, we have retailing. The challenge has always been in Nigeria more around distribution than supply. If you have supply problem, it lasts longer. So we learn from the past, we never go out of supply. But the problem is distribution. Needless to say, 60 to 65% of the country source their products from Lagos. At the last count that I know, we only have 35,000 trucks. That 35,000 trucks cross this country. They go to Maiduguri, they go to Sokoto, they go to Calabar. And the rate at which they make their turnaround has changed significantly from 1 week to 10 days. Now they hardly do once in a month. Why? Roads are bad, rain season, and several other constraints. To tell you, the last couple of disruption that we see, and that's why they say it's not supply. We all know what was happening around the Apapa axis. There was a blockade. No truck of anything, including products that were loaded, can leave. And because of that, it created a problem. If you stay 1 day without delivering product in Lagos, you need a minimum of 1 week sustained supply at a higher rate to recover that. If you waste 2 days, it takes you almost 3 weeks. And if you waste 3 days, it may require you to do 1 month. And this is a major problem. So I can tell you that I see the dashboard every day. Even as of today, we have 2 million barrels, 2 billion liters. Now, these 2 billion liters, they are supposed to be in our stock in the depots, whether NNPC owned depot or other private depot. These are being reported transparently by the midstream authority and by every stakeholders. We also have those in the marine. Those in the marine we are referring to are those who have tendered their notice of readiness. And when you tender a notice of readiness in a given country, you can move until that product is of the. If you move, it's stealing, and you cannot be allowed to go. So when you accumulate what we have in the marine and what we have in the stock in the depot, that's what constitutes the 2 billion liters. But your ability to take these 2 billion liters to the stations is where the problem lies. A Jegun has a problem because of rot. And because of that, trucks cannot load or they're loading inefficiently. And this is the major problem. It's not supply, it's a distribution issue, and we need to debottleneck it. I'm glad to say that a lot of effort has gone in, including the support of Lagos State government, to debottleneck what is happening in the Apapa, and there's free flow. And if you see, the severity of that has reduced significantly. In Abuja, it has reduced significantly, and we hope that this will continue to improve as we go into the Yuletide season. Our target is that never are we going to have a very difficult Christmas. And whether in upstream or midstream or downstream in NNPC today, the directive of the GCO Malam Melekari is that you are a product distributor. Go there and take, and that's why I can speak confidently about what is happening. I'm in charge of the Lagos zone, and I can tell you clearly that everybody is on the street to make sure that we support what we need to support to get this product into the station.
All right, thanks for the reassurance. So we're looking forward to having fuel at the station's Christmas period. Is there a time limit? Do you have a time frame?
I believe things being equal by the end of this week, this thing will subside.
All right, so yes. Queues, and this is an assurance for Nigerians who are watching, queues should move or disappear from our roads by the end of this week. Thank you for that. Now, taking the advantage of you being here as Chief Investment Officer, I'd like to get your take on the recent kick-in on the price cap on Russian oil. Does this have any impact on Nigeria or perhaps OPEC in general?
Okay. Let me talk as an investment officer. Anything that you bring to bear that is not supported by economic and commercial fundamentals, it will not have a lasting effect on that commodity. Price cap, I think, is politically driven. EU want to continue to get oil from a particular source, but EU want to also deal with that source. And that become a political exigency. So those decisions are politically driven. Does it have impact? Yes, it may have impact in the way that if it becomes effective, what you likely see is a disruption of supply algorithm. And when you have supply destruction, the chances are demand will go higher and price will kick in. As of today, even without that geopolitical implications, the world is short of oil by about 3 million barrels. Demand is somewhere hovering about 97, 98. Sorry, demand is about 100, 102, but supply is 97, 98. So the gap is already existing. Any attempt to affect this gap wider, it therefore means price will go off. And that's why you see today, I think about $4 was lost on the Brent. But everybody thinks that that's temporary because there are no new supply coming. And if there are no new supply coming, demand keep going on, and there's a threat by the major supplier, Russia, to throttle down on their production. If they throttle down on their production, it affects the global supply landscape, and that means demand, particularly as we come into January, February, is likely to be wider than the supply, and prices are likely to go up. So implication is that it will impact, or it might impact, depending on whether it worked or not, on the global supply dynamics, demand-supply dynamics, and the impact of demand-supply dynamics we all know on prices. So we're looking forward to that, but I do know that political decision on commercial activities had limits. So that's what I can say.
Well, Mr. Wunti, I think we should just wrap it up there, and thank you very much for joining us on the morning show.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ruben, and thank you for having me once again. I appreciate the opportunity.